Once in a time, there was a traveler, someone much like you. This traveler bore a burden invisible to others, but ever present in their heart. A box, both sanctuary and prison, framed the traveler's every step. The box was not made of wood or iron, but of a story, one carefully constructed, polished, and retold countless times. It was the story of their pain, their identity, and their struggle. Yet, despite its familiarity, the story offered no relief. The traveler, tired from carrying the weight of their self-imposed narrative, sought solace in fleeting distractions, medicine, alcohol, endless tasks, or the comfort of routine. But no matter where they turned, the box remained. Its corners pressed against their mind, whispering doubts. You're not strong enough. You can't handle what's outside this box. One day, exhausted and with nowhere left to turn, the traveler stumbled upon an old wanderer sitting beneath a great ancient tree. The wanderer's eyes gleamed with a light that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of existence. Without speaking, the wanderer gestured for the traveler to sit. "Why are you so weighed down?" the wanderer finally asked. The traveler, startled, began reciting their story, their pain, the struggles they had faced, and the hollow emptiness that gnawed at their core. The wanderer listened patiently, then smiled gently. "That hollow feeling," said the wanderer, "is not emptiness. It is space, room for something far greater than your story. But you cannot fill it because you are too afraid to let go of the narrative you have clung to." The traveler hesitated. Could they truly let go of their story? What would be left of them if they did? The wanderer continued. To find relief, you must first dare to sit with your hollow core. Sit without your distractions, without your story. Ask yourself, who would I be without a single thought? Who am I when I am simply breathing, simply being? The wanderer closed their eyes, gesturing for the traveler to do the same. Together, they sat in silence. At first, the traveler's mind was a cacophony of thoughts, plans, and fears. But slowly, the noise began to fade. For the first time, the traveler noticed the subtle rhythm of their breath, the warmth of the sun on their skin, and the whisper of the wind through the leaves. They weren't lost in their story. They were simply present. "This is where the healing begins," the wanderer said, breaking the silence. "You are not separate from the universe. Every cell in your body is connected to the great intelligence that orchestrates the stars, the tides, and the beating of your heart. But you can only access this intelligence when you stop trying so hard. Let go of your need to control, to strive, to fix. See how much more you experience when you simply allow yourself to be." The wanderer smiled and picked up a leaf from the ground, holding it out to the traveler. "Look at this leaf," they said. "Try really hard to see it as clearly as you can. Focus on every vein, every color, every detail." The traveler, eager to understand, furrowed their brow and stared intently at the leaf. They traced its tiny veins and studied its edges, trying to absorb every detail. "I see it," the traveler said finally, looking up. The wanderer nodded, then said, "Now, hold the leaf again, but this time don't try so hard. Just look at it. Allow it to exist as it is." The traveler relaxed and let their gaze soften. As they did, something unexpected happened. The leaf seemed more vibrant, more alive. They noticed the faint shimmer of sunlight passing through its edges, the gentle curve of its stem, and even the earthy scent it carried. The wanderer smiled knowingly. "You see, when you try too hard, you miss the essence of what you're observing. You might catch some details, but you lose the bigger picture." It's the same with life. Stop trying to figure everything out. Stop trying to control every outcome. Simply be, and you will see more, feel more, and experience more. The traveler sat quietly, reflecting on the lesson. The wanderer leaned back against the tree, their voice soft but firm. Do you ever wonder how the great pyramids were built without modern technology? Or how ancient Chinese medicine solved mysteries we are still unraveling today? The traveler nodded, intrigued. It is because those people lived in a different state, the wanderer explained. They did not burden themselves with stories about their limitations. They may have been aided by more advanced civilizations that left Earth or possessed technologies beyond what we have today. But that's not the point. Regardless, these people had skills and knowledge that are difficult for us to comprehend even now. They did not constantly compare, strive, or worry about their place in the world. They were deeply connected to the intelligence of the universe, a force far greater than IQ or logic. This intelligence is within you, too. It's the same intelligence that makes your heart beat and your lungs breathe without any effort from you. But when you overthink, overwork, and overcontrol, you block its flow. You diminish its power. The wanderer stood, brushing dirt from their robes. Remember this. You cannot be in the present moment while worrying about the future or reliving the past. Begin small. A few times each day, breathe deeply. Let go of your story, even for a moment, and trust that the same intelligence that turns seeds into forests and stars into galaxies is working within you to heal and guide you. The traveler stood as well, feeling lighter than they had in years. They turned to leave, but then paused. Will I ever be completely free of my story? They asked. The wanderer smiled. You don't need to be free of it. You only need to see it for what it is, a story, not the truth. The more you let go, the less power it holds. And the more you will see, not by trying, but by simply being. The traveler returned to their life, but they were no longer confined by the box of their story. They carried the wisdom of the wanderer and the power of stillness with them. And as they walked through the world, they found that by letting go, they gained everything they had ever sought. This is your journey too. Let go, breathe, and see the world not by effort, but by the simple act of being. As the traveler walked away from the tree, a profound stillness settled within them, as if the world had revealed its hidden harmony. They realized that life didn't need to be conquered, only lived. It was no longer about the struggle to understand everything, but about the ability to be fully present with what already is. And in that realization, there was relief, a freedom so vast it could not be described. For, as written in many ancient teachings, there is a place within you where suffering cannot reach. It is not found through striving, but through surrender, not by grasping, but by living with your pain and letting go. The truth of suffering in Buddhism teaches us that all life contains suffering, which can manifest in obvious forms, such as pain, illness, and death, or in more subtle ways, like dissatisfaction and a persistent sense of unfulfillment or discomfort. The truth of the cause of suffering reveals that suffering arises from craving and attachment as we cling to the impermanent and the unattainable. The suffering we experience, as taught by Dukkha, stems not only from the pain of life, but also from our disconnection from nature, each other, and our own inner being. Over 90% of this suffering is self-inflicted, born from our attachment to fleeting illusions and our resistance to the natural cycles of life and death. As Zach Bush emphasizes, our fear of impermanence blinds us to the beauty of being present. Craving and attachment arise when we forget that we are not separate from the greater whole, but rather integral parts of an interconnected universe. To transcend suffering, we must let go of the illusion of control, embrace our unity with all life, and find meaning in the ever-changing flow of existence. In this surrender lies liberation. The ancient Egyptian worldview was deeply rooted in the concept of balance, often expressed through Ma'at, which represents harmony, justice, and order. To achieve harmony, the Egyptians recognized the importance of accepting both light and darkness, joy and suffering. Suffering was seen as part of the cosmic balance, a necessary experience to fully understand the completeness of life. Without facing challenges, a person could not appreciate the order of existence or grow in wisdom. The priesthood also emphasized that death and suffering were not endpoints, but gateways to a higher understanding. In Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, suffering is viewed as a path to spiritual transformation and closeness to God. Poets such as Rumi and Hafiz often described suffering as a fire that purifies the soul, burning away ego and illusions. Rumi expressed this beautifully in the words, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Suffering is not merely something to endure, but an essential experience that strips away falsehoods and brings one closer to truth. In Chinese philosophy, particularly Taoism, life is seen as a river of constant change, and suffering often arises when we resist the flow of the Tao, the natural way, by embracing both yin, the dark, passive, and yang, the light, active. One can find balance and peace. Zhuangzi, a Taoist philosopher, taught that death and suffering are natural processes, and accepting these realities leads to greater serenity. Through this perspective, suffering becomes an integral part of the path to harmony and self-realization. By recognizing these truths, we can begin to understand the root of our suffering and take steps toward liberation.